What's up, guys? It's your boy Wise Infinity coming to you today, making another long ass video. This video is probably gonna be like 3 to 4 hours long, so you might be like, God damn, 3 to 4 hours long? What the fuck are you gonna be talking for 3 to 4 hours? Well, I'm gonna be talking about a lot of One Piece stuff. So just, some simple arguments, counter arguments, just, going off narrative alone. You already know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment down below if you want to discuss more, debates, discussions, share the video. You already know what to do, guys. I don't have to tell you. Hope you guys enjoy. We're gonna essentially be starting off. So this is the quora post that I wanted to talk about, and essentially we're gonna be going over like some small, small easy things to counter. So this guy believes, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but personally I don't even think this is an opinion. I think this is like Goku versus, Naruto. I think majority of people would just say Goku wins. I don't think there's a big group of people saying, Naruto wins, unless these people are like mentally like troll, like they must be trolls. So this guy believes that Luffy is not light speed, or he believes he's hypersonic. So I can already tell this guy doesn't watch One Piece. So Foxy beams don't slow down. He's talking about the object or person slows down. So he says it's an as yet undiscovered particle. So light is a particle. This is true. Whatever this light strikes, he says it's light. Whatever this light strikes, whether it's a living creature, liquid, or gas, will maintain all its other properties, but lose velocity. He's specifically talking about a creature, liquid, or gas. He says slowpoke photons, which is the name he gave, slow down anything they touch. He's specifically talking about the things that it touches. And he says it's easier to understand this power if you see it in action. So when you see this beam in the panel, it's already at the cannonball. So, and he even calls it a beam. So everything the light strikes loses speed. So he says it's light. So the author is specifically choosing the words light to describe this. So why would this not be a light speed attack? Moving on, if you guys want to say, well, you can dodge light and you're not light speed, that's fine if you believe that. I personally will just show you this, and this by itself already proves that Luffy is light speed just for being able to dodge this. If he can react to it, well, Luffy's reaction speed would already be light speed. His combat speed would already be light speed, because his reaction speed and his combat speed are like similar to each other. If anything, you could probably argue his attack speed's a little bit faster in Snake Man, but you could probably still say like, well, his reaction speed is based off of his combat speed. So the higher his reaction speed is, the higher his combat speed should also be, because Snake Man accelerates as it continues to target you. So moving on. So I think this by itself would already prove that Luffy's like near relativistic. Mind you, this is a Luffy without gears, and we know for a fact that gear second gives you a 10 times 2 power and speed. In gear second you get a 10 times power and speed bonus. So let me see, I forget which one it is. No, this is not the one I wanted. Oh, this is Chopper dodging. This is Chopper dodging a beam of light. Chopper does not have hockey, by the way. Okay, so this is it right here. So this is the French data book right here, and this is the Japanese data book. So I'm gonna argue why the Japanese data book is probably more reasonable with the post time skip, and I'll explain why. So the power and speed increase tenfold. Not even a monster of Rokushiki could anticipate his attacks. So this is from Data Book Yellow. And it says power and speed specifically. So if his speed is already relativistic, too high relativistic, so if he's like 90% the speed of light already, if he is 10 times that, then he would be, you know, you just fucking multiply it. So Luffy would be over the speed of light. He'd be faster than light already in just gear second alone. So if you have any problems with that, I mean, this is a data book that literally says he's getting 10 times more speed. So the reason why I would argue that the Japanese one makes more sense to use is because it says extraordinary. Even the Rokushiki user cannot respond / notice. So power and speed are extraordinary. So the reason why I would say this makes more sense is because if we look at this picture here that I used, this picture would make more sense. Because it says Devil Fruit abilities become as strong as one trains them. Luffy's Gomu Gomu moves are going to evolve more and more. So this is directly noting to the fact that Luffy will essentially grow more and more. And the reason why I would argue this is important is because if he's going to evolve more, if his Devil Fruit is going to evolve more, then that means he's not limited to being a set stage in multiplier. It would make no sense. I hope that makes sense, right? So for an example, in Dragon Ball Z, if you were to train Super Saiyan, you can technically make your Super Saiyan form stronger, or you can make your Super Saiyan form your base, like what Goku did before the Cell games. He stayed in Super Saiyan form to reserve energy, to be more comfortable, and to reserve more power, therefore increasing his overall power, which is why he was able to stay above Vegeta. Vegeta continued to train the way he wanted, and Goku decided to train the way he wanted, and Goku far surpassed Vegeta in power, and Gohan as well, training in this method. So by using your base over and over again, or by Luffy using gear second over and over again, he essentially made it his new base, and therefore in the post time skip has now mastered it. So he doesn't have the same drawbacks as we can see, right? So you could argue, well, this is headcanon, but it is technically not headcanon because we can see Luffy is able to use gear third and not turn into a tiny midget, and we can also see he can use gear second without having his life force being drained. So Luffy doesn't have these drawbacks no more. So I would argue, yes, his 10 times multiplier is probably a lot higher than what we understand it is. So moving on. He also believes that the attack potency of Luffy is like continental, which I've already argued many times before, but we're gonna be going over it again. So before that, he essentially says Blackbeard can't create black holes, he creates darkness. How you gonna try and defend Mid-Piss and not even know that much? But I'll steelman you and say he can't create black holes. That wouldn't make him planetary. That's a Hack's ability, not an AP feat. So it's very funny that he says that, because a lot of Naruto scalers like to say that, well, Kaguya can create a dimension, and Kaguya can create stars in her dimension, and there are planets in Kaguya's dimension, so therefore she is planetary, and she is dimensional, and she is universal, and she is multi-galaxy level, and all these things, right? But Blackbeard is literally creating the thing that can literally destroy all of that. And he's not planetary. Just think about what I just said. So the reason why this is a black hole, or it is the closest thing to a black hole, like 95%, the only reason why I wouldn't give the whole like 100% is because he says darkness is gravity. And this only applies to One Piece. Darkness is the absence of light. So no, darkness is not gravity, Blackbeard, but this is the official. So this is what the author wants. The author is specifically choosing to make darkness gravity. He's specifically choosing a darkness so dense it sucks in everything, even light. Sounds like a black hole. Infinite gravity, just like a black hole. A black hole has a infinite density. Since its volume is 0, it is compressed to the very limit. So it also has... Okay, so, like I was saying, Naruto scalers like to say Kaguya is a, you know, dimensional, universal, AP, all these things, right? But if I say Blackbeard has black hole AP, where he can just eat everything he wants, and in a 3-dimensional plane or whatever, right? If I say that, that's cap. Oh, that's just hacks. By this guy's logic. But, you know, just like a black hole, everything is sucked up, including light, but Blackbeard has control of this and is only choosing the town as he says he will. Darkness is gravity, which only applies to one piece, and he says that darkness is dense and can suck everything, even light. So this is infinite gravity via darkness. So moving on to the big post. Now, I'm gonna try to get through this as quickly as possible. So, yeah, like, just to sum up his shit, he's essentially saying that Luffy's like hypersonic to relativistic. I think I've already done a good job of explaining. Excuse me, I have hiccups. I think I did a pretty good job explaining why Luffy's beyond faster than light speed multiple times. Like I said, the video by itself already proves that base Luffy, like, if base Luffy is relativistic, right? And even if you don't believe Gear Second is above a 10 times multiplier currently, which it technically should be above, like, it should be like near 100 times or greater, if not much greater. Like, it's crazy multiplier, in my opinion. Even if you don't believe that and you just believe it's a 10 times multiplier, the 10 times multiplier is still to speed, so that would still put him 10 times above relativistic. So he'd still be like, even if you said he's 90% times 10, so he'd be faster than the speed of light in base already. So, or in Gear Second, which is his newest base, right? And then Gear Third would just be, you know, higher than this. So, and I could argue it's even higher, but let's just say for the sake of argument, he's only like 30 times the speed of light in Dressrosa or whatever. Luffy's best feat is his Bajrang gun, or Monkey God gun, or Hanuman gun punch. So the sky is torn. The reverberations can be felt from 1,000 miles away. Sounds kind of familiar. Kind of sounds like his King Kong punch. Maybe it's something along this, right? Maybe it's something like this. Wow. So for you guys, okay, so we know that this is happening. So the birdcage is here, and this is happening here. So a large portion of this town is going to be destroyed, right? It's already fucking destroyed beyond Kingdom Come. But this is, I'm going to explain to you why this is a continental feat. So, moving back to this. This is from the road to Laugh Tale, which is by the author clearing things up, saying the reverberations can be felt from 1,000 miles away. So, the reason why I mention this is because if this were to touch the ground, if King Kong Punch were to touch the ground, it would shake the whole fucking ground. Now, whether you believe it would start to, you know, break everything and you know, from the just the sheer force, I'll show it to you guys one more time. Mind you, Dressrosa, I'm gonna explain why Dressrosa is beyond continental. This force is happening by the center of the island, or as we can see, it's happening here, right? So if the waves are being affected over there, right, like, this is a very far distance. I'm going to explain why this is a very far distance. This kind of force is continental in force, and I'll explain why, don't worry, I'm just taking my time. So this punch is doing something similar to King Kong Punch. I'd argue it's probably much greater than this. Mind you, Luffy didn't physically punch the ground. He is clashing with Kaido's strongest attack and overpowering him. So I mentioned that because the punch should be charging up. The reason why we know it's charging up is because, and I'll show pictures for this as well, because it's doing a Gear 4 like compression So whenever Luffy does like a compression, so this is the image of the punch when, okay, this is taking 30 years to load. So we see only the fist, right? And then, okay, so we see more of it. But in this picture right here, if we look at it, we see there are lines in it. So we see that the punch is compressed. So it's not at full power at the moment. So this punch is very strong. It is like a King Kong punch, but just very, very big. So moving on. Then as soon as Kaido gets sent into the magma pit, an underwater volcano rises, or erupts, and the narrator announces that Luffy is the winner. So see the volcano right here. This is happening by Udon because this guy, I think his name is like Babanuki or whatever. So Babanuki is reacting to this. So it's a very big, big volcano, and I'll explain why in a little bit, or I can just explain it now. Okay, so if they're here, right, and it's kind of weird that they can see this, but there's like a little part where the ocean is like visible in Udon, and it's like this little port thing that they have by Udon. But when they're looking at this, they're kind of looking upwards. Like it kind of seems like they're looking upwards. I don't think they're looking like forward. They could be, but they're probably looking at the smoke. And because like okay. So here I just realized this. Okay, so if we use this part right here, look at how much look how much like ash is like going into the air. Look at this. This is encompassing. This would probably encompass all of Onigashima. That's how big this volcano is. It's very massive. This is looking like a super volcano. So this is a very big thing, right? Like, so they're probably reacting to it from the sky, and they're like, oh man. And plus, since it's the manga, we cannot really hear like a grumble, like a lot of noise. Okay, well, we do hear a kaboom. So we know there's a noise. We know there's a big noise. So kaboom is like an explosion. So in the anime, we'll get more context. So in the future, I'll probably overview this feat again, and I'll either increase the power. It's either stronger based off of the anime, or I'll leave it as is. But right now, if you guys want my scaling of that punch, I would put it at multi-continental plus to like planetary in power. And just to explain why, it's because he has Rio Haki, Supreme Haki, he's awakened, he can give himself muscles in this form in Gear 5, and he has Haki. On top of that, like, he physically is just punching someone into the ground, creating a massive hole, as we can see here. This is the hole that Luffy made by sending Kaido underground. So this thing is like 2 Mount Fujis, and this is a very tall mountain. Like, it would encompass over the flower capital maybe like 2 or 3 times over. It's a very big mountain. So this is like 2 mountains in terms of distance. This is very far distance, and there's essentially like a magma core here, like a magma pit that he gets sent into. So this is the official translation, and in the official, I can't zoom it in, but it's saying, this is the countries reacting, or the sections of the country reacting. And in Ringo, they say something happened in the capital, and Hakumai, they say, does it have something to do with that earthquake? I thought the whole realm was going to crumble down. So this is them reacting. Now you may be like, oh, they're maybe over exaggerating, but like I said, the anime will do this a lot more justice than the manga. There's no way to really understand. So Udon is here where the volcano is happening, and then Kibi is over here. So they believe here the whole realm was gonna be destroyed, and over here is where most of the impact was. And then over here in Hakumai, this is where they believe the earthquake, like they believe there's an earthquake. So this would already, like, from just this and probably because it's probably like around here or whatever. By just this image alone, I can already tell that that punch that Luffy did is affecting the entire country. And I don't mention the other countries because they don't really react to it, from what I can understand in the manga. So I only use the people that actually reacted to it. But they say the whole realm, which could be essentially. So I guess I just search up essentially what the fuck a realm is. Realm definition. A realm can essentially be like a land, like that's it. Realm definition. A field, a domain of activity or interest, a kingdom. So it's not a kingdom, it's more of a domain, right? So the whole, or it could also be like the world, or the region, right? So let's just take it as region, right? So the whole region, they felt here in Kibi that the whole region, not just this one area, but the whole region itself was going to crumble. And mind you, the punch was happening in the sky. So this is all Wano, excluding Curry and Hakumai, because they don't react to the earthquake, but to the signal of the flower capital. We know Udon reacts to it. As you can see, the punch created an earthquake going through the country and an underwater volcano, and sent Kaido flying into the magma pit. So this is a punch that is affecting the whole country. Now I'm going to explain to you why this place is probably a lot bigger than what you would think it is. But the distance is not really confirmed. So according to the manga, there's arrows that can travel very vast distances, but that's a very vague statement, so there's no way to really consider it. The only thing I can take is probably when the daughter of Odin starts explaining how long it would take you to traverse every piece of land. And according to her, it would take days to get to maybe Curry all the way to Ringo, if you try to walk it essentially. But we know this is probably not very accurate because they used alligators. But I think she's talking about walking. So if you were to walk from Curry to Ringo, it would take a couple of days. That doesn't necessarily mean it's continental in size. If anything, you could probably argue that it's probably less than a state away. This would be a very short distance if we're using days. But I would say that this is a very big island, and I'll explain why it's a multi-continental plus feet in a bit. So this context on how on adding how much stronger the punch is compared to Luffy's punch in Dressrosa, which is far weaker, and why it is far weaker than the Monkey God gun. So according to the wiki that explains Viola's power, and Viola does use this to try to find the Straw Hats that are outside the coast of the island itself. Additionally, she can use her powers to view anything within a 4,000 kilometer radius. She can use her farsight in all directions at once and see things in great detail. So specifically to the ability where she can see a 4,000 kilometer radius, which thankfully we have a circle here of an island, so we can actually see. So let's say Viola's here, she'd be able to see everything in this specific radius, because a radius is a half circle, so therefore she'd be able to see everything here. So the reason why she was using this power was to see the Straw Hats that were supposed to be coming from the coast, but she could not find them. So if she was looking in both directions and she could not find them, even if she looked up and or let's say north, east, south, and west, if she were to look in all four directions, she could still not see them. So that means the Straw Hats were probably not there at the time. I don't remember the instance. I would have to go back and rewatch it and see. Maybe they were on the island. She probably just couldn't see them. But that's not important because it doesn't matter. The important part is that she can see beyond the coast. So that means at least minimally that this area right here would be near 4,000 kilometers. So in reality, this island would already be continental, Because if we look at in one direction, the Australian mainland extends from west to east for nearly 2,500 miles. So nearly, so it's 4,000 kilometers. So this country of Dressrosa would essentially be like twice the size of Australia. So it'd be able to withstand like two Australias. So when we go back to this picture right here and we see how much impact is being affected here, in reality, this entire area is going to get destroyed, right? So this is a continental level feat based off of that one thing. So if this is a half radius, right? So this would destroy most of a continent. If this half radius is a continent in size, right? Well, technically this side would be longer than this side, right? So, or yeah, so this side would be 4,000, but this side probably would not be 4,000, right? Maybe it's 4,000 in this direction and this direction, but it's probably not, right? Because this would be the whatchamacallit, yeah, because the radius would only be this side, right? It would only be, wait, I forget. Holy shit, I'm dumb. What is the radius again? I've said the word radius so many times. Okay, so oh yeah, so the radius would be this, the half part of the circle. So essentially this part right here, or like this, like, okay, so like if I were to like draw a fucking line on it, there was a circle. So yes, so like since it's destroying like well, technically it's destroying more than half, but since it's affecting all of this, it would be continental. This punch, the King Kong punch, would be a continental level punch. It would destroy a continent, or yes, it would destroy a continent essentially, because the radius. So like, okay, let's say I were to put this here, right? This is gone, and if I were to do King Kong punch again, this is gone. So that would be the full. So you'd either argue it is a quarter. It would either destroy a quarter of a continent, or it would destroy like near like 50 or above 50. But I would probably argue it would destroy more, and I'll explain why right now. The reason why it would destroy more is because since half of this island is 4,000 kilometers, or like a section of it, I should say, and Viola can see in a radius that is a half circle, putting Dressrosa's diameter at 8,000 kilometers in totality, making over double the size of Australia, making it continental in size. That would put Luffy's King Kong punch at continental to like multi-continental. So then we see like the actual impact of the punch itself, and like Luffy's up here, like he's only like a dot, and mind you, he's also like trying to stop Dofi's strongest attack. So this is breaking through Doflamingo's hockey strings, or his 16 holy bullets, his strongest attack, easily in the manga, which is far greater in strength than the birdcage itself, because it has hockey, and the birdcage, well, maybe the birdcage has hockey, but I doubt it, because that would drain a lot of hockey from Dofi. So I would say, oh, and by the way, his strings can cut through Fujitora's meteors, which would already be like a nice little feat on its own. Like he can casually just slice through meteors. So if you believe a meteor is country level in power, then that means you would already be believing. And we also have a picture of the birdcage tanking meteors as well. So like you would already understand that this birdcage is no fucking joke. So I would already argue that Dofi's strongest attack is probably beyond country level in terms of power, and in the manga, Luffy just breaks through this. So it's not like the anime where it's like, you know, like they're clashing and, you know, there's build up. Like Luffy in the manga just breaks through this. So and mind you, if this is a country, like if this is a whole like double continent, right, and the birdcage can destroy all of that like casually, that would already put like his strong, like that would already put Dofi's strongest attack at, you know, like Dofi would also be continental in power as well. So moving on, King Kong punch much greater than just the bedrock being destroyed. So yeah, this is the panel, and I also explained this is happening like in the sky as well. So like when we look at this, right, he does King Kong, and then he does 16 holy bullets, and when it literally touches, right, like literally here, it just breaks through, like it just shatters through. And I don't know what this part is, but I guess it's like the explosion, and he just punches through like Luffy so fast. And since this punch is happening in the sky, its full effects of how much it would destroy if it were the land itself can be argued, but we know that Luffy is punching Luffy into Dressrosa, and that is causing the bedrock to split in two. That means he punched a person so hard into the ground that the bedrock split in two, and the center of the country got thrown up essentially. So like I said, if we go back to this part, if Luffy is in the middle and he were to destroy all this section just by being thrown into it, the reason why I would argue that this punch is stronger than Continental is because if he were to physically punch the ground, then the whole ground itself would probably shatter in two, or it would start to break essentially. So moving on, so this is a side note that I'm not confident in just putting it here. So 1,000 Ri is almost 4,000 kilometers. So according to this guy, which it just says very vast distance. I don't know why he actually says this, but if this is true, then this would make Wano bigger than Asia essentially. So now the size of Wano, I won't give it a confirmed distance because some scales put it over the size of Asia based on each section, and this is, you know, this is just using non-narrative things. So the country being 1,000 Ri according to this translation, but this is a side note you can ignore. So when I say this country, I mean like each section would be like 1,000. So the arrow letters of the country are transmitted beyond 1,000 Ri, but in reality it just says very vast distance. So I'd say Onigashima is actually smaller than the flower capital based off of this picture. So if you look at these two pictures, this is Onigashima, and then this is the flower capital. So this skull would be smaller than all of Onigashima. So this map isn't scale. So there's no real way to actually determine like how big the island or how big the flower capital is by itself. But yeah, it wouldn't be to proper scale. So like if this is an island, right? And Luffy was essentially going to destroy this fucking island. That means he could destroy all of Flower Capital. But not only is he doing this in the sky, like I said, he is shaking the entire continent or area, right? And we already know that Luffy's King Kong punch is continental. So it just makes sense to say that this punch is beyond that because... And I don't think no one would argue against it, but it just makes more sense to say like, oh, that it's beyond continental because his previous form was way weaker. So Luffy's Bajrang gun is as big as Onigashima. Now to explain why Luffy is far stronger here than he is in Dressrosa. So this is just a fuck ton of context. If I had to give a short answer, Luffy went through growth. He's gotten stronger. He's surpassed his limits multiple times. He's awakened. He's gotten new haki. That's why his punch is beyond multi-continental to like multi-continental plus to like planetary, if you wanted to argue that. That's the basic argument, that's the basic fact essentially. It's just a fact. He's just gotten stronger, therefore his punch is stronger. It's just that simple. But if you want context, I'll be going through all the context right now. So now to explain, now to add context to this, Rayleigh states one's haki gets stronger when fighting other haki users. Technically, it's not even other haki users. It's just fighting stronger opponents in general. But that's not good enough. Luffy, listen, Luffy, I've given you training now, but the real advancement in haki happens during extreme use in battle. The stronger the foes you face with this power, the stronger you'll become with it. So he's just talking about foes. He's not... he's just talking about how strong they are. So they don't necessarily have to have haki. They could be really good devil fruit users, and your haki could still grow. I wonder if I could also see a bit of the future. Stop dreaming, Shrimpy. So this is during the Katakuri fight, but a day prior to this, Luffy fought Cracker, and Luffy states that his haki is too hard. This next part is context. If not stronger than Dofi's haki, which cuts him, but Dofi's strings can't cut him. So Dofi's strings can't cut Luffy, but Cracker's sword can. So this puts a lot of, scaling to Cracker. So I'd honestly argue that Cracker is stronger than Dofi in terms of AP. I'd also argue that, like, I don't even think Dofi would win against Cracker personally, just because his hard biscuits make Gear 4th Luffy struggle in Dressrosa. So I'd argue Cracker is much stronger than Dofi. He is definitely an upgrade. So he does say his color of armament is too hard. So this Luffy, which should be stronger than Dressrosa Luffy, is struggling more against Cracker than Dofi with help from Nami, and this fight lasted 11 hours. So this fight would already be... So Cracker already has more stamina than Dofi, more attack potency than Dofi, more durability than Dofi. The only thing you could probably argue is speed, but the biscuits are able to keep up with Gear 4 Luffy. So I'd even argue Cracker has speed over Dofi. So using narrative, I'd argue Cracker is much stronger. So I'd actually argue that Luffy's getting stronger after this fight. And just to put into perspective, Luffy is able to absorb sharp attacks in Tank Man. So what the... I can't tell. Is it hard or soft? That's what she said. So he tries to stab him with the sword, but as we could tell, the sword doesn't have haki on it, but he's able to absorb it. This is also a non-haki attack since the color isn't drawn black. Luffy after this fight then proceeds to fight off Big Mom's crew and wait for Sanji to give him food again to restore him again. So I'd argue at this point Luffy is stronger here. Luffy then crashes Big Mom's party and tries to clash with Big Mom and loses horribly in one punch. And now we get to the bread and butter of the basis of Luffy being able to surpass his previous gears in power in his base. So Luffy does a lot of growing in his base, and this is just a lot of context. If you want the short summary of it, Luffy fights Katakuri, he gets stronger, he loses in Gear 4th, but then he uses his base to fight Katakuri. He fights Katakuri for like 12 hours, for a longer time in his base, therefore he grew more in his base than he did with Gear 4th. And that just makes sense because his Gear 4th forms only last like a couple of like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever you would like to give it. So it just makes sense for you to say like, oh well, he's growing in his base. So this is just like context, and I've already said this, but to say it again, abilities that evolve over 10 years training, devil fruit abilities become as strong as one trains them. Luffy's Gomu Gomu moves are going to evolve more and more. So this is from the data book. Like, this is just proving that Luffy's gonna grow stronger and stronger. Like, so to say that he's not getting stronger would just be stupid. Now, if there was information to suggest that he's getting weaker or that he hasn't grown or that he's staying stagnant, then yes, you could argue that his King Kong Punch and Bajrang Gun are like the same or in power. But because Luffy has grown so much in power and in speed and in reaction speed and in durability, I'd argue, and even in regeneration and just overall hacks, abilities, since Luffy has grown in all fronts, I would argue that this punch just makes sense for Bajrang Gun to be like multi-continental plus higher, or planetary if you want to like highball. This is a comparison of Luffy when he was a kid versus when he started his journey where he punches the Lord of the Coast. I added this because Luffy's gears are also getting better in the story, and we see that with pre-time skip to post-time skip. I can argue this point separately, but this would be pointless. Yeah, because it's like saying he's not gonna grow, but he does grow. And if you don't watch or read the manga, it's like then you wouldn't know. So moving on to the beginning of the Katakuri fight, Luffy and base is getting smashed, and Cat even says Luffy is already in a bad state. So he says, but look at the state of their captain. Right, and we see Luffy, he's already bloodied up. Here we have a statement by Cat saying Luffy is dodging his attacks, and Luffy says he always attacks in the place he will dodge because Katakuri can see the future. So, real quick, you always attack right in the spot where I'm going to dodge. It makes everything twice as tiring. Same goes for me. I've never had someone avoid so many of my attacks. It's stressful. Cat stops Luffy from going gear 4th and states he is an awakened user. The ground turned into Mochi. Yeah, he's pretty much, he doing what he does. Stops him. He pretty much shits on him. Cat shits on him. So this is important. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because in the beginning of the fight, Cat just poops on him. Then after that, he goes into gear 4th, and it looks like Luffy's getting the upper hand, but in reality, Cat still has the upper hand. So it takes time for Luffy to then get to the same level as Cat in base or comparable, and then gear 4th, Snake Man puts him over the top, making Luffy stronger than Cat. So he grows beyond himself. So sorry about that. He also says I refuse to underestimate you as well, so he's already acknowledging that Luffy's a threat. So we know this fight lasted 40 minutes. He captures Luffy inside of here. After that, they clash again. He says there are levels to the color of armament. No one who has seen my true form can live. Luffy's in pain. This hurts him a lot. He's blowing on his hands. He didn't dodge. My kick landed. Luffy is surprised. Here he just explains essentially that he was not focused. I think I'm starting to understand your power. So here Luffy is able to understand that, what have you understood? I already taught you your abilities cannot match my own. Rain falling Mochi, gear 4. Yeah, you might be tough, but you're not invincible. So he goes, gear 4th. He's able to, get a moment to actually go into the form. And this is actually the first time where he's moving while doing gear 4th, which is a very important thing for Luffy's growth, something that I just realized right now. Now that I think about it, the first time he did gear 4th, he was just standing still, but now every time he does gear 4th, he's always moving when he does it, so he can always have the ability to dodge, just to prove that Luffy does learn from his past mistakes. So this is very important, actually, now that I think about it, because it shows that Luffy will adapt to situations in order to get an edge in the fight. He's not just actively trying to fucking lose or put himself in a bad position. Luffy's a very adaptable fighter. I would argue he's much more adaptable than a lot of people give him credit. So here Luffy starts underestimating Cat. So yes, he pretty much says he thought he was invincible, but in reality, Cat is just creating holes in his body to dodge. And Luffy says he can't stand up to gear 4th, but we already know. He starts saying oh, you only have observation, he's not very strong or whatever. But in reality, this is probably not true. It's impressive that you can even detect what I'm doing. That's right, I'm merely reforming my body to efficiently dodge your attacks. It's possible if you can see the future with hockey. So yeah, pretty much. So I think here, yeah, this is when Luffy starts getting his ass beat. He's by losing my grip and getting a bit excited, I allowed you the opportunity to attack. You need to be properly calm for observation hockey to work. Now, many years... I just realized something. So he says he's losing his grip, that he's getting a bit excited. He lost the opportunity, that he gave Luffy the opportunity to attack. That you need observation hockey in order for it to work, and it's been a long time since he's gotten punched. So now Katakuri, he kind of gives Luffy props for defeating Cracker, and he understands why he defeated Cracker. He does power Mochi, and then Luffy in the next one says Oh, he's back to being tough again. So he says, I won't be giving you that opening again. We're back to the starting point. And he says here, essentially, damn it, he's back to being tough again. So even Gear 4 Luffy is struggling to fight Kat. So Kat says they're back to the starting point. Yeah, pretty much the same shit I was going through over again. So Luffy tries to run away so he can like regroup, get back his power and shit, stamina, his haki. Here Luffy runs away because his haki is running out of time, out of the time period. It isn't confirmed here, and this is an important mention because Luffy's time limit changes every time he uses it based on the opponent. His haki usage is also different now because he's able to run away after leaving Gear 4th in Whole Cake but not in Dressrosa. Actually, this is not true. According to the author here, Luffy was always able to run away after Gear 4th. He just decided to rest. So the trade-off of not being able to move that you're referring to never existed in the first place. So Luffy can move out of Gear 4th, and we do see him have like a more of a mastery in Wano. So we'll see that in a bit. So he says he got to last 10 minutes, and this 10-minute thing has not gone away. In the anime it says 2 minutes, so I don't know which one's correct, but he says he only needs to sleep for 2 minutes and then he'll be better. So Luffy runs away, he comes back, and then, you know, Cat just starts calling him dumb. So you're back and festier than ever. Answer my question. You could have kept running. You were up against me. No one would have mocked you for fleeing. So why did you return? Or did you decide to prefer death to the shame of being a coward? Or did you recognize my superiority and come back to plead your case to work under me? And then Luffy says, I came back to beat you. That's not an option. So, moving on. Flampe actually hits Luffy when he wasn't paying attention. Then Luffy starts getting hit a lot more. And then he's starting to like dodge. So he's in his base. Not in Gear 2nd. He's just trying to dodge in base. So he's not even using like his Gear 2nd multiplier to like increase his speed. He's getting punched a lot. Here he uses Gear 3rd. No wonder you're frustrated. You tried to stand and I swept you off your feet. You tried a left punch, so I hit your left shoulder. You tried a right punch, so I hit your right shoulder. Here he's just explaining everything he's gonna do before he does it. There's a will to every attack of presence. Don't just strike out blindingly. So here, this is like he's getting Rayleigh flashbacks, essentially talking about like observation haki and seeing into the future and stuff like that. And even Katakuri's starting to see that Luffy's starting to grow. So in his base, yes, it's true. Very infrequently he sees the same future that I do. So Luffy is growing, in fact. Luffy is starting to see the future, confirmed by Cat, and he says he's catching up to him. Luffy's just getting beat the fuck up. And he even says here he's getting closer and closer to my observation. Color of observation. And then he says like, I have to eliminate him sooner. The unthinkable could happen. So he understands, Cat understands that as he fights Luffy for these 12 hours, that Luffy's getting to a point where he's just going to surpass him. And even though he's getting his ass beat, and mind you, the amount of punches that Luffy took was like 100 and like something. It's like 120 punches. And Luffy only hit Cat like 13 times or some shit like that. So that's just proving like how much Luffy has grown. Like he took that many punches, he was hungry. Like this is insane like stamina, endurance feat for Luffy, honestly. We see like the dodging animation, so he's getting faster. Luffy gets hit by Flampe and he starts losing hard some more. Um, so in reality, I don't think his foot slipped. I think he got hit by Flampe. And in the anime, it's more clear. This is why I prefer the anime sometimes, because the anime just makes it more clear. An instant of carelessness can turn the tide of battle. Why did you lose focus? And Luffy's not speaking. Like, Luffy's in pain. He's just beating him up. Just when I was starting to admit you were worthy, you suddenly shown yourself to be very disappointing. We get a flashback. Maybe that was my imagination. No, imagination is just fine. It is beyond such tricks of the mind that you will find the color of observation. You must learn to sense it subconsciously. And, you know, here I think Luffy is shaking. He stood up again. What's with his quaking legs? Yeah, his legs are shaking. Here it goes. And then Flampe tries to hit him again. A numbing needle. So this actually misses. And he dodges it. But he also falls down to the ground. Katakuri starts, catching on. Essentially, he's like, oh, Flampe did something dirty. So Luffy dodges Flampe's next attack, but also stated by Cat that he faltered beforehand and got hit by Flampe's first attack. But this shows Luffy's improvement, where he can sense attacks from people outside his battle. So this is not really an attack potency kind of thing of increase. The only thing that I would say increased is maybe when he's talking about like there are levels to Armament Haki, and maybe his like ability to, because your Armament Haki is essentially your defense and your offense at the same time. So if you're able to tank a lot with your Armament Haki, then you should be able to dish out a lot with your Armament Haki, vice versa. So you could probably argue AP equals durability with Luffy specifically, like with One Piece. I wouldn't say it's always that consistent with everything, but with Luffy, you could probably argue that his AP equals durability. Because Luffy has been getting beaten up for hours, now this fight lasted 12 hours in total. So yeah, Cat essentially injures himself because he wants to fight honorably. And then essentially Luffy says there is no dirty fighting between pirates and admit that he should have he just says it's his fault, like he should have just been better. Like he doesn't make excuses. I no longer assume that you are inferior to me. That's great, thanks, but I'm still going to win. So, you know, he sees him as an equal, so that just shows how much Luffy has grown. Not that he's grown on Cat, but he's specifically growing. Like he's no longer inferior to me. So, essentially saying he doesn't see him as below him, but someone he can see is probably an equal, most likely. We got a flashback. So this is like where Luffy has to essentially dodge 100 times, and this is very important because in the last hit, Rayleigh completely hides his presence. So I guess I can maybe show this real quick. Where he essentially does this. So we'll just skip to the last part. Luffy. On that last one, I was completely hiding my presence. So even if you're hiding your presence, Luffy can still sense you. So yeah. moving on. Mind you, I'm fucking getting exhausted. So if you haven't liked the fucking video, make sure you like the video, because I'm literally putting all of my energy into this shit. It literally took me a whole fucking day just to make this long ass quora post, and we're not even halfway done. I'm probably gonna have to do it in parts. And I hope all this helps you understand that Luffy's getting stronger during combat and after combat. So this is more of like a reaction speed increase. Like, you could argue he's not more powerful. I would argue Bounce Man is stronger than Snake Man. Snake Man is faster though than Bounce Man, I would argue. I think I might do this in parts. I might take a break. So I'll probably do another part of this video. So I'll probably upload this, and then I'll upload a second part to this. So yes.